Okay, welcome to Parent Conversations. This is done, we're able to provide Parent Conversations as a courtesy of a grant from the Bear River Health Department. And Kim, our normal host, is taking a few weeks off before her kids have to go to school. So you get me as your host today. My name's Megan and Tim Keady. And I said your last name right, correct, Tim?
That's great, yes.
Okay, because, well, our spellings are similar, but the pronunciations are way different. So Megan and Katie, don't forget that, you guys. Anyway, we're going to talk with Tim today about helping kids achieve independence. So have your questions ready and we'll turn the time over to Tim.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. We hope. Get it the right way. Hopefully you're seeing something worthwhile here.
We can see it. Very good.
Yes.
That's always helpful. All right, we're going to talk about children achieving independence. Okay, so obviously this is me. It's what I am. Lots of strange things that I've done. But I guess biggest thing that I really talk with children about, adolescents, youth, whatever it might be, is a lot of mental health issues, really. I work with children with suicide prevention, substance and alcohol abuse, parents as well as children themselves using it. Do a lot of stuff with basically children who are having issues with family members that are in treatment also. So we're with children that come to treatment. So do lots of different things with children. My focus as part of USU Extension is generally on trying to reduce people dying from substance use disorders or overdoses. So it's one of the things that I do. I also work with a lot of different groups, trying to see what we can do to assist parents in all different areas. My previous positions, one of my positions as Associate Director of a Student Health Center was basically working directly with adolescents who have a lot of behavioral issues, as well as eating disorders and substance use, suicidal ideation, all those kind of things. So I've done lots of different things with all different populations, as well as having children of my own and now grandchildren. So we have a little bit of experience. One of the things I also do when we do these types of things is talk with my wife, who actually is a marriage and family therapist. So one of the things that we talked about briefly today, or we'll talk about today, I'm really just giving you examples of information. It's kind of what you can take and use what you want, what might be helpful, what might not be helpful. You kind of take it in that vein and see if it's helpful for you to be successful with your own families or grandchildren or loved ones or whoever you might be a caregiver for. In this day and age, we have lots of people that are providing care for children that may not even be their own. So we appreciate those caregivers for what they do, and we hope that we can provide good information. One of the things I do mention is a lot of what we do here in USU Extension is with 4-H. So a lot of the programs we work with here involve children, obviously of all different ages, growing animals, growing vegetables, growing different things, farmers, different groups that I work with. So there's lots of things that we do that we know can be helpful for our families. And some of these things I'm sure you're already doing. We'll talk about those in a moment also. So we want to recognize the importance of independence for children, be aware of the importance of problem-solving skills for all family members, and then use skills learned to assist your family. Some of the things we're going to do. One of the things I like to begin with also, when we start talking about age-appropriate activities, that becomes difficult for some people when people wonder, what is an age-appropriate activity for my 3-year-old, for my 4-year-old, for my 12-year-old, whatever it might be. Well, I just put on here some links, and the links are actually in resources, and we'll have these available as you look at this again, online even. The developmental milestones from the CDC, 2 months to 5 years, a couple different areas to look, and links that are available for you to do. Also talking to a physician becomes very important. All different stages of life change, and children obviously are part of that big bell curve. So we know that some children may be slower developing, they still may be within the developmental stages that are correct for their age, but I know that that does concern some parents, whether it's how much weight they gain or lose, or whether they're developing appropriately to be able to read. So there's all these different things that are available to people that we work with and for, by going on some websites and talking with those that have that expertise, whether it's physicians, whether it's a psychologist, psychiatrist, family therapist, whoever it might be. Those are all good people to speak to if you have questions. So I just put up a couple here, the CDC developmental milestones, the positive parenting tips, which really go up kind of like to the teen years up to 15 to 17. So just for your information. Some of the things that we talk about for children developing correctly, I just put a couple of examples here. The 3 to 5 years of age as an example. Skills such as naming colors, affection, hopping on one foot, those are developmental things. We talk about children being able to do those by a certain age. They reach milestones by how they play, learn, speak, move, all of those things. As they go into early childhood, their worlds open up, become more independent, and begin to focus on the adults and children outside their families. That becomes important for them also. That's kind of a 3 to 5 year old, just kind of really very, very brief review of some of the things that we look at with developmentally appropriate ages. From middle childhood, from 9 to 11, for example, growing independence from family and interest in friends might be obvious by now. Healthy friendships are important to your child's development. Peer pressure becomes an important part of what they look at and do. That's when parents become very, very important, because peers will try and pull things away from our children at times and our loved ones, so be careful with that. We talk about being able to resist peer pressure and make better choices for themselves. We want to have them have that capacity and ability. We talk about gaining that sense of responsibility, their growing independence. And that gross physical changes of puberty may also be starting. This is all from the positive parenting tips from the CDC. So we're talking about helping children build independence. We want to talk about teaching good decision-making skills. We want children to be able to make their own decisions in order to be independent and confident. We want to help them by talking about how to make those decisions good ones, and teach them that for each big decision, they should stay calm and take time to think it through. One of the things we see quite often in children, no matter what their age, those little temper tantrums, that children at times will just do some things that are kind of very annoying, can be disappointing at times, can also cause some parents to feel frustrated and possibly angry by how children responds. In many cases, the child is just expressing themselves in a way that they understand may work. We talk about all these different names we call children that do these things. They're having a temper tantrum, they're having a, they're a terrible two, whatever it might be. There's things we call out on children. The reality is the child is just doing what they know may work. If they try it and it works and they have a, what you may consider a tantrum, and that works, they may do it again to see if it works again. So we talk about being able to make sure that we can keep our children calm, again, developmentally appropriately calm to think through their actions and see what will happen as they go forward. One of the things we talk about when we're teaching that independence, I'll just give you a few things here, just some ideas, again, that people use. Kind of age appropriate activities, teaching self-help skills. As an example, parents regularly assess what we're doing for our children, that they can be doing for themselves. So what are we doing that they could be doing by themselves? So kind of organizing things, picking up toys, doing different things of those nature that maybe someone is not allowing their child to do. We always talk about, not always, but often we'll talk about parents who are helicopter parents or hovering parents who always do whatever they can for their child and don't give their child a chance to do that. And that's something I think we need to be aware of and be careful of. Obviously, an infant can't do things for themselves. You have to do those things for that child in most cases until they get a little bit older. And then you can encourage them to do some of these things. So teaching those self-help skills to your child becomes important as they grow in age. So what can they do to help themselves? Can they learn to eat on their own? Can they learn to drink on their own? Can they learn to walk on their own? And then going further, as they get older, can they make good decisions on their own? So there's lots of things that we want to do to help them be successful. So teaching self-help is one, chores and responsibilities. Giving your child a sense of self and desire to do things by themselves, by giving them some simple chores. So we talk about being patient and encouraging as you're doing those. You know, it becomes difficult at times when we have a child who takes 3 or 4 times as long as it would for you to do it. And oftentimes we're, as parents, and I'm the same way at times, I'll be willing to do those things, especially for my grandparents now. I want to try and do that for them so that it's not taking so long. So I can get on with my day or whatever might be going on. I have to remember that we want to teach our children well and our grandchildren well, or our family members well, to be able to do these things on their own. And having that responsibility becomes important throughout their lifetime. So as you're doing some of these activities and chores, whatever you want to call them, break them down to very simple steps, something that they'll understand based on their age, whether it's picking up trash, setting a table, dirty clothes, putting them away appropriately, picking up after they eat, whatever it might be that you'd like them to do, have them do that and have them do it consistently and ask them to do it. And take your time and wait for them to complete those tasks. I think that, again, it's the hardest part is to be patient as a parent and let them do those tasks on their own so they can learn. If they do them incorrectly, we talk about being aware that it may take more than one time to do it. You may have to just keep reminding them to do a little bit differently and encouraging them as you go forward. Another thing we talk about, building independence with children. All of these could actually be used for adults also, teens and adults, for our entire families. Teaching how to solve conflicts. That becomes difficult also at times. As you start teaching those to our children, we always want to help them. We talk about fighting their battles. But teaching them to solve problems is a critical lifelong skill. We talk about helping them through the steps, but resisting that urge to give them the solution. So we know we can do it faster. We know we can call someone, get someone to take care of this for us. We know that we can do things with a teen, talking to a parent, loved one, care, whoever it might be. But we got to kind of resist that urge and let them do that on their own. So we talk about identifying what the problem is, stating the problem, maybe even just stating the problem out loud can make a difference for children who are feeling stuck. So having someone else say that to them can allow them to identify what the problem really is. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? You know, what's the issue here? Or, you know, my friend wants me to do this. Does that make sense? And it's when you say it out loud at times, especially as a child to a parent, the parent may go, "Oh, that's really not a good idea." And the child will go, "Well, that makes sense. As I'm saying it out loud to you, it does sound bad. Well, my friend wanted me to go climb a 20-foot tree. Would be fun, but I could fall." So things that we can talk to as we start identifying that problem. Think of solutions to the problem and discuss those. Brainstorm 2 or 3 or more ways to solve the problem. So talking about climbing a tree, well, maybe we won't climb a tree. Maybe we can look at the tree, or maybe we can look at something else to do something that's fun in the forest, for example. Then analyze the solutions for fairness. Look at positive and negative consequences. If I climb a tree, what could happen? If I don't climb a tree, my friend might get mad or might not play with me again, but at least I'll be safe, I won't get hurt. So thinking those through as a conflict resolution theory becomes very helpful for those children. So we've taught the child to think of the solutions, pros and cons, and then have them pick one to try. What's going to work for them in this situation, in conflict. Remember, we're doing all these kind of modeling that behavior and seeing what we can do to help our child get to this over a period of many years. Obviously, it's going to take to get some of this in place. So you're picking that solution to try, and then they test it, see if it is successful. We talk about appropriate monitoring, being there with our family or children, loved one, whoever it might be, that person who's we are responsible for. We don't want them doing something with a fire, hurting themselves, or climbing a tree, using a logging chains or something. So there's ways to manage it. So we're helping them learn how to resolve and solve conflicts in a manner that's age appropriate and will help them be successful in their lifetimes. So we've talked about a few things. Now we're talking about those natural and logical consequences. This is something that's really big in our family. My wife especially thinks this is really a great model and works well with some of the work that she does in family therapy. Talk about people and children learn best through natural consequences. So allowing your child to experience the natural logical consequences is something that can be difficult at times again, but can solve a lot of problems. So for example, they didn't bring their boots or put their boots on when they went to school, they don't get to go to recess. That's the logical consequence for what happened. Someone loses points on their homework because it's late. They didn't get in on time. They weren't able to do it. That becomes a problem. But that was their action and not the parent's action that caused that. So the parent might encourage them to do it. If they don't get it done, that becomes their natural consequence. Forgetting to return a book, use your allowance, they have to use their allowance to pay the fine. So there's things that we can do as parents and as adults to reinforce that idea that if you don't do something, there's going to be a consequence to it. Helping children learn what happens when they do not follow the rules or aren't responsible for their belongings is an important part of childhood and an important part of a parent or an adult teaching a young person or younger person to be more responsible to what they're doing, and natural logical consequences follow. We talk about even falling off a bike. A logical consequence might be my bike is broken or I injure my knee. So we talk about what we can do to keep our children safe, but also allow them some area to make those mistakes and build that independence and trust themselves to be good examples and to be young adults and adults that will grow into people that can care and make good decisions on their own. So it's all about building step by step on basic principles to allow our children to young adulthood to adulthood to be successful. Okay, we talk about important tasks of parents. Obviously, we want to raise independent, resilient children who can venture out and solve their own problems. When we talk about planning and preparation, you can help nurture your child's growing independence by doing some things that we've talked a little bit about now. We'll talk a little more about. One of the things I wanted to ask before we go any further is, what do you do as a family to build independence? Maybe you want to comment on that? Anybody out there? I don't think I can see anybody right now, but.
Well, Tim, my kids are all grown up now. And while I feel like I could have done a lot of things differently, my kids learned how to work, and some of them manage money better than others, but I encouraged them to work. And a lot of them, I think one of my kids started working a job for somebody else at 14. So I did one thing right. Taught them to work, and they are hard workers.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's a big deal. That work ethic is something that becomes very important. So that's great. Anybody else have any other comments? Anybody else want to comment on that?
One thing that we've been working on this summer is our kids earning their own trampoline. It's something they've always wanted. And so we didn't really want to have them earning money per se for it. So we went ahead and bought it just outright. And then they're earning it slowly by doing their own chores or the things that they know that they're supposed to do. And then they earn beans. And once they fill the jar with their beans, then they will earn the trampoline.
That's great. That's a great idea. I like that. Kind of a unique way to do it, but that's perfect. That's exactly what we want our children to be able to do, right? To grow and learn and have that ethics and ability to do that. That's great. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
There are some comments in the chat. If nobody else wants to go, I would save the chat ones for last, but a couple of comments from commenting on what you said earlier about 4-H being an incredible program, and Emily said that they were very involved in her entire life and she loved it. And then Emily also said that we like to assign each kid a meal day. They're supposed to plan and prepare dinner for the family for that day.
That's perfect. Those are great ideas. Those are, and I think that, as we do this and as you do more things and you're involved with your children and doing fun things and getting them to try something different, right? We have some people may or may not do something like the tramp, like they might, say, well, we want the children to earn the tramp before, maybe we take some of their money or we do something different. But I like the idea of every family has their own things that will work for them. And that's what becomes, I think, really important. And it's like using 4-H and, having that meal day is great too. We used to have our children all would prepare a meal when they were growing up. We had 4 daughters. So part of that was teaching them to be able to do that type of thing, as well as being able to do everything else in their house, in our home, whatever it might be, whether it's raking leaves, mowing lawns. We tried not to designate it as a male or female thing. Everybody could do the same stuff. So no matter who it was in our home, whether it was a boy or a girl or grandchildren or loved ones or anybody that came, you're all encouraged to do your own laundry. That's one of the things that even when I was growing up, we were encouraged to do laundry. If we played sports, we had to do our own laundry. That's kind of one of the deals we had with our parents. So we learned from a very young age, and we started playing. I played football and basketball in high school, and before that, we had to, take care of our own equipment. We had to clean that and wash it and make sure it was done correctly. Of course, my mother and father would help us initially, but then after we learned to do it, it was part of our chore was to do that, make sure we were doing it correctly. And I think that some of the things that we can try might be very different. And I grew up in a family that did a lot of landscaping. So one of the things we did from the time we were really young was use wheelbarrows and move dirt around, and did that for hours and hours at a time. We helped build basically a 6-foot pad on the back of my aunt and uncle built a home. And instead of having them use a bulldozer and fill it all in and landscape it, we did it by hand. We don't know why they did it that way, but in the end we found out that they wanted us to have that opportunity to work in the backyard with them and do that over a period of a couple of weeks and months. So we did a wheelbarrow for months and months at a time essentially, and we thought wheelbarrows were fun until I was about 20. And I'm like, that's enough of that. But we learned things that were very different to do, and it worked for our family. And so whatever works for your family is something to look at too. So that was great. And we talked about some successful things. Has anybody tried things that wasn't helpful? How about that? That's another question. I think one of the things that wasn't helpful in our family, believe it or not, was giving an allowance. My parents didn't believe in giving an allowance. That wasn't part of what we did. At one point we said, well, my cousins got them. We thought, well, we need an allowance too. We wanted to try it. My parents said, well, if you want to try it, that's great. Here's what we'll do. Here's what you can do to build your allowance up a little bit further. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. My parents bought all of our stuff for us. From the time we were very young growing up, if we wanted something, we could ask for it and we would work for it, doing stuff around our home and stuff, but we never actually got paid, $5 a week or whatever it is, $10 a week, whatever it could be. And we found that in our family, the allowance just wasn't something that worked for us. It was kind of a strange thing. And I had cousins and family members that were like, well, you guys should get allowances. That's so much better. And somehow in our family, we weren't motivated by money, I guess. It's kind of a strange thing. It wasn't something that motivated us growing up. So money didn't work for us.
Tim, I agree with you on the allowance thing. I subscribe to Dave Ramsey's theory that kids should get commission instead of an allowance. That way they learn the money work connection. We had another couple of comments. I think Emily again, she said one of her favorite childhood memories is that she and her siblings helped plant and grow the garden. And in the fall, the kids were able to sell the pumpkins and keep the money.
There you go. Perfect.
That definitely teaches you that work money connection.
Yeah, I like the way you put the work money connection. That's kind of a great way to do that because, obviously we have to work for some things, and whether or not you think it's appropriate or not to do certain things. Like So we put in lawns as landscape. We put in whole lawns for people. We did all these crazy things. We thought it was really fun. We liked it. But we did it as a group and a family. Our friends and family, all of us worked on it when we were probably 10 or 11 years old. We would put in lawns for people that need a lawn or whatever. And sometimes, we'd get paid for it. Sometimes we wouldn't. Most of the time we just got taken out to lunch. We went out to lunch with my family. Our uncles and aunts and everybody went with us, and we all had a big lunch. And that's what our payment was. And that was fine for us. We didn't even think about getting any other money for it. So again, it just depends on what you want to accomplish with it. And then also we were told this is what it costs to do these things, right? We were told we want to put a yard in. How much is, we had to ask us sometimes to figure out how much does it cost for us to put seed down? How much seed do we need? How much do we need to do this, this, and this? And how much, if we were going to pay someone to do this, if we didn't do it ourselves, what's kind of the going rate for people getting paid even? So we kind of did some different ways to make it work for us and our family to learn that value of work towards money. So it's one of those interesting things to do. Or anything else that wasn't helpful before I go further? If not, we'll go forward unless Megan has somebody else talking in there somewhere.
Nope, nope comments, nothing, we can keep going.
Okay, perfect. All right. We're talking about, again, helping build independence. There was one thing I looked at, which was really strange on wikihow.com. I've never seen that before. I was like, what is this? So this came up when I was looking at different things, and it's one of the areas that talked about how do we encourage independence and confidence in our children. And I thought this was actually a pretty good article, which I was not expecting in a website. So it's on here right now, wikihow.com, but it talks about with building independence for younger children, setting those age-appropriate goals, know what to expect from your child at different ages, which we can do with that CDC website. Create clear, simple steps, provide easy to follow instructions. What are some simple things that they can do on their own? Going back to what we talked about previously, but it's a nice way to keep it really concise. How do we make, for example, if we want them to do the dishes, how do they do the dishes? Do you have a dishwasher, or do you do it by hand? I grew up doing dishes by hand for many years. It was something else that we thought was kind of crazy, but we made it fun. It was made fun in our family. We just, at times obviously it'd be difficult to do if you have too many dishes or too many people there, but in most cases it was just a family. We had 5 people in our family. It was just, so it wasn't really a big deal. We did it by hand, and we had dishwashers as we grew up later on, but a lot of times we just did it by hand anyway. We just kind of talked and did stuff and had a good time together. So creating those clear, simple steps of how to do it for us became important. This is how we did it. This is what we did. That's how we went forward. Again, modeling activity. My parents modeled those activities for us. They would talk us through it as we were doing something. Like with the laundry example, how do we put in laundry? How do we do the laundry? How do we make sure it's done correctly? How do we not turn everything pink? Whatever it is. I mean, some people like pink. It's hard to have our equipment be pink, but sometimes that happens at times, different colors that we know becomes a problem. How do we use cold water versus hot water? So they'd show us how to do that. And then the first then phrasing, especially for a younger child. Things that you like followed by a disliked activity. Example, we're going to go for a walk and then we're going to rake leaves. Something like that. So something that people may not like as much. We talk about first, we're going to do this, then we're going to go do these things. So giving, especially some younger children, the opportunity to have some input into what's going on, but also to know that there's some fun things can follow, things that we might not like, or doing others. First, some people do things they don't like first, and then do something they like after. So something we even did this past weekend, I think we went and did some things. We cleaned a home, and then we went and got ice cream. That was one of the things we did. So something that you can choose to do, an activity that works for you becomes important. Giving a child a choice. Again, what do they want? What do they want to do? How do they want to do it? I said sometimes we have to be patient because some of the times our children are going to take a long time to do it. But we want them to learn that they can do it. And they can have a choice in what happens. You know, do you want to have this or this for dinner tonight? And you can help us make this different dinner. Or what would you rather do first? Would you rather clean the house, or would you rather go out and do some work outside? So give them opportunities to have some input. And then you use encouraging words. You know, this is something that's pretty important with younger children as well as all people, is giving them encouragement, but also correcting with kindness. That's something else that we don't always think about. You know, we talk about reproving someone and telling them no or yes or whatever. If we do it kindly, people are going to have a much better reaction than they would if you're doing it rudely. And I think that's something we forget at times too. We get short sometimes, and we've all been there where we've talked to children or to our children or someone else's child even in a way that maybe we weren't really thinking about. Sometimes it sounds mean to a child, and I say something to my grandchildren once in a while, and they think I'm yelling at them. If I just say something to them, it's not even, that's not yelling. I'm not even saying it to you guys, just talking my normal voice. But because they're not used to hearing me even say, hey, we want you to go do this, they kind of wonder, well, are you mad? And it's like, well, no, I'm just trying to talk to you about this. We need to get this done. And I have to remember that they're little children. I have to not, and I'm a little bit bigger than most of them, so I have to be careful I don't scare them. And then after they get used to that opportunity working with me, then they go, oh, you weren't mad, were you? I said, no, it's what we're doing. We're correcting them with kindness and making sure that they don't feel like someone is being angry with them. So encouraging words, age appropriate, clear, simple steps, model activities, use first then phrasing or then first phrasing, whatever works. Give the child a choice, and encouraging words. Correct with kindness, and should put love on there too, because that becomes very important. As we move over to children, well, to children and older teens, what this one kind of is about, we talk about teaching accountability, how choices and consequences are connected, teaching good decision making, talk about making good and bad decisions. What's the result if you do this? For example, as you're talking to a child, what can I do? What can we do to make this a better idea? Why is this not a good idea? We talk about work ethic again, comes up right here. You guys spoke about that a little earlier. Teach about hard work and reaching goals, and how you can achieve those goals. And it's not easy to become a surgeon or to be someone who does stuff online or creates games or whatever it might be. It takes a lot of work, and it's not always easy. So helping them build that work ethic is important. Teach problem solving skills, help the children figure out a solution to a problem. Don't give them the answer, but help lead them to an answer. That's something we even do in management. We talk about leading people to results that we want, not in a negative way, but in a positive way. How can we make sure that we're doing this, this, and this in a way that's going to be helpful and safe for our employees? So I do very similar things like that with people in management. So helping them figure out the solution. Set boundaries, provide rules and consequences. You have to be in by 10. The consequences, you don't have to go out the next day or for a week. You may not be able to leave the home. So setting those boundaries as they get older becomes very important. As they're able to learn, doing that at a younger age is also what we try to do. Teach money and time management skills. We talked a bit about that. Help your child learn them early. Again, money is a big deal. And if people don't have that value, it can be a really negative part of their lives for many years. If they don't know what they should work for, or have to work for, or what the importance of time management skills are, that can affect them throughout their lifetime. I see that in people that we work with, adults, young adults, even older people I've worked with. We've had to take them aside and talk to them about time management, or maybe, hey, you can't keep getting credit cards and just putting limits up on, only paying the minimum. It's going to take you years to pay them off. So there's lots of things that we do even to adults that I wish we would have them learn as a child. So talking to your children becomes important about that too. Compliments are something that becomes difficult. People say we compliment people too much. We do some things to some of our young children. I don't agree with that. I think that if we're specific and accurate and don't exaggerate, because they can tell if you're exaggerating or saying all these great things that's not true. the compliments still are very important, and doing it in a way that helps them learn that they can value good work and feel good about themselves becomes very important. So compliment them appropriately. Then nurture their skills and interests. Encourage their talents, encourage things that they've done. Help them want to play music or want to do something, play sports, or want to be an editor or a good reader, whatever it might be. I think that's something that at times will often force children to do things because we'd like to see them do these areas, but the reality is it's up to the child to follow their skills and interests. So taking your time and their time becomes a great thing. So encourage those talents. So that's kind of just in general for the family members as they get a little bit older. And then we have, our family independence. We talk about general problem solving skills for everyone, which we talk about with anybody from adults down to younger children. And again, teaching them how to do things like active listening. That's really, again, kind of modeling a good behavior so they understand what good communication might be. Again, all these things, analysis, communication, creativity, dependability, decision-making, how to research, how to build teams. All these things are part of what we do on a general basis to our families, I think almost daily. And I think if you think of even what you do with your young child, you're showing them behaviors that fall into these problem-solving skills that we all should use. So it's something to think about as you go forward. One of the things that we didn't put in here too much, we talked about checking with your physician for questions. If there's things that we have specific questions about, especially regarding some different diseases or disorders, look at this website, Child Development Research from the CDC. It has some information on ADHD, ADD, autism, CP, hearing loss, hemophilia, jaundice, sickle cell, spinal bifida, Tourette's. All those things are on there that we know sometimes people will have questions about. As you start looking at the developmentally appropriate areas and learning styles of your children, you may notice something. In most cases, people notice things in our own children before anyone else does. So it makes sense with this child often, and then some close family members may also see something. So that becomes something that we want to be aware of and just look at. So if you have that question, make sure you ask your physicians. We're talking about your family's plan for help. Talk about teaching some of these items to your family also. Again, age appropriately, but let them know what your values are in a family, what you expect of them. Talk about expectations, consequences, actions, all of that. Those are something that we know starts early and can be a problem if you're not careful. So drug and alcohol prevention, no harms. What are your values? What do you expect from your children regarding smoking, vaping, drugs, and alcohol? Obviously, because of what I do, I put this in here. 90% of substance use disorders begin before the age of 18. And I have people I work with that don't even know what they're doing is illegal as adolescents and young adults because their family just did it. It was something that their family did. They used drugs, and it was just a normal part of what they did on a daily basis, and they didn't even think about it being a negative thing for them or their family.
Tim, I don't think many people think about drug and alcohol prevention as fostering independence, but if you honestly think about it, drug and alcohol dependence is exactly the opposite of independence. So yes, it's important to teach our kids to stay away from substances that lead to addictive behaviors that essentially cause us to give up our independence.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we talk about substance use disorders, and they're actually dependent on a substance, and that becomes a problem because it limits their growth in many areas. And I think we don't think about that with some of our young adolescents being exposed early. And one of the things that we found even in vaping, for example, we had some middle school, so 6th graders were vaping, and it was just a normal part of what they did every day. And no one was talking to them about it because they didn't know what to say. So I think something that we need to be aware of are things can be out there that we don't have to be really, afraid of, but at least talk to our children and say, hey, do you see any of these things going on in your school or in your community or at home or anything else, especially if you have parents that might vape or smoke or drink or whatever they might be doing. It's not a comment on them. It's just the reality is then a child's more likely to do it. If they have friends and family members and people they know doing those items in areas of behavior, it's going to happen. So we talk even with COVID-19, we don't talk a lot about that, but how do we model health promoting behaviors to make children be able to want to wear a mask or wash their hands or don't wear a mask, whatever it might be, but staying 6 feet apart from people. So again, being careful with some of these areas becomes important. Social skills, saying no to things if somebody wants you to come do something, or doing things that are inappropriate. Societal norms and ethical or moral behavior. What do we expect from you to do? What don't we do? Pro-social involvement in behavior, things that are great for our communities, those become important. Resilient. We talk about being resilient in all different ways. Adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or stress. These are all things we need to teach our children at a young age, so it's not something new to them when they get a little bit older. We kind of end with this kind of things we talk about, because of what I've done for so long with many people in different areas. Talk about the wellness tips for families. If you've listened to this before, the presentations, even this group I talk about, these are some areas we look at. Being smile, be the annoying positive person. Manage your stress. Use stress as good stress versus distress. Not all stress is bad. We do need some. Have fun, get outside. Be grateful. When possible, help others. Take many mind vacations, meditate or something similar. Develop those relationships. Find people who help you, provide you with good feelings and excitement, lift you up. Eat a balanced diet, drink water, all those 6 to 8 cups, all those things, exercise, sleep. That's a big thing. Sleep is a big thing that people don't think about, especially with children and adolescents. Making sure they're getting enough sleep becomes important. And as you get older, it is a fallacy that you need less sleep. The reality, you don't sleep more as you get older, generally because you have pain or things that wake you up, or insomnia, or drugs, or medication that causes some issues. So being aware of that's important. Reducing high-risk behaviors. You start that young, you don't worry about those as you get older. If you don't drink when you get older, don't smoke, you have less high-risk issues to deal with as you get throughout your lifetime. See your mental health and physical health care providers. Take your meds as directed. Unplug a couple days a month. I mean, one of the things I'm seeing with a lot of younger children is they're all on their screens. I've got grandchildren too. We started getting some of them phones. It's like, wow, this really changes how they interact with each other as well as interact with us and with their family members. So it's something we try and encourage them not to always be on them all the time. And you can call us, USU Extension, with questions. Call me if you have questions, or we have other people who can do things with you too, to specialize in families and helping people be successful. Here's some references that we have: AMFT, CDC developed milestones, encourage dependence, the wiki, and the resilience skill set. Some of these quick things. This is part of what I do, again, from USU Extension, the Heart team. See my Facebook and Twitters and all those kind of things. That's kind of what we do. And I always end with this kind of thing: with building resiliency becomes important because we want our children and our communities to be healthier. We talk about emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, occupational, and social wellness. All those components are very important, and it starts at a young age. We want children to know that they're valued, that they're loved, and that they're cared for, that we need all of them to be successful and help our communities grow and be better. So I'm gonna stop sharing now, go back to where I can actually see people, see if anybody has any comments or any questions or anything they'd like to add. Or did I talk too fast?
That was excellent information. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Yep. I do wish we had a magic wand we could wave for adult children.
Yes.
Just
And I think that's part of being a parent is also learning, learning to let go. And I mean, our goal was to raise them to be independent. And now we need to sit back and let them be independent.
That's right. That's where I'm at.
Yep.
And I think, believe it or not, I think sometimes it's hard as they get older because we want them to follow certain footsteps at times. And we ask them, why didn't you do this? Or why did you have this person you're interested in? Or why did we do this with you? Or whatever. So I think that becomes important to allow them to be successful. You're right. That's what's hard. We've got children that are, I've got some children that are, you know, successful, and we're like, well, how did you get successful? I'm like, well, I work very hard. You know, I have a daughter who's a chemical engineer, and my other daughters go, oh my gosh, she's so much smarter than we are. You know, they grew up and they're saying, oh, she's so smart. And it's like, she always tells them, no, I just worked hard. That's how it worked for me. That's what I did. I wanted to do that. It didn't come easy, but I worked hard at it. And now I think most of my children, which I never expected, are all either have completed graduate degrees or getting graduate degrees, which I never expected that from so 3 of my 4 daughters will have graduate degrees. So not something we expected. Not what, you know, we didn't ever tell them they had to go further and do something. They said, well, you know, they wanted to be like us. We played sports. You know, they said, we want to play sports. Like, well, sports aren't that important. We'd rather have you do well in school. So it's one of those strange things. We balance all these areas with our children going forward. And we just want, all we really care about is that they're healthy, happy, and loved, and they like their lives. That's what it comes down to for us. So, and as we get older, you learn those things, and you want them to be able to do the things they want and enjoy what they are working on. And to have the opportunity to have grandchildren for us is really a great blessing too. So all these things we can do, we hope you have good children, you have good grandchildren, and you have them healthy. Not everybody has healthy children either, and that's something that we don't talk a lot about either. And that's really difficult for many people who've lost a child or have a child who has a severe or even a minor disability. Those are so hard on families, and I think we don't talk a lot about that. And you know, there's been comments and people that we talk about how great these families are and these cool things that they've done with their children who are disabled, but nobody sees what happens those long nights that they spend not sleeping or not being able to take care of the things they want to, or you know, putting off those vacations because they have other obligations financially. So we've got a lot of great parents out there. We only hear kind of think about some of the bad ones at times, or somebody who idolizes someone else. But to me, anybody who listens to this or is involved with their children is doing really good things. So I think that's what I'm grateful for, and allows me to do things that when I talk to people who have substance use disorders, we've got some people who come from really good families. I've got some people that come from terrible backgrounds and families that I'm just wondering why they're even not doing something different, why they're not, you know, in prison. So I see all different areas, all different ways, and I think that all we can do is do our best. And as a parent, we can't blame ourselves for what may happen that's wrong. That's what I find also. We can't blame ourselves for what goes wrong because we may do all the right things, have all the right things in place, and our children still can have a problem. It can just be one of those things. So I tell parents, don't blame themselves. Anything can happen. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing with us today. Does anybody else have any comments before we end? Any questions for Tim? Tim, as always, we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and experience with us. If no one has anything to say, we're going to go ahead and draw to a close. We have another meeting that starts in about 10 minutes or less. Thanks for joining us today, and have a good week. And
Oh, Megan?
Yeah. Oh, prizes.
I do need to make one quick announcement. So we have, as part of the grant that we do the parent conversations with, we are also doing there's a research component so that we can make sure that we are doing you know, everything that you guys need, and to make sure that we can provide the very best program available. So I have just released I think it released a few minutes ago, or it will be releasing in the next few minutes, a link in the groups. Would love to have each one of you please complete that survey. We are giving some awesome prizes for everyone that responds, because we really do want to hear your feedback. So if everyone would please be sure to respond to that survey, we'd appreciate that. And then also, yes, on the prizes, Megan and I I know some of you have earned those reward levels. And so we are very excited to get those out. And Megan and I are still working on those. Sorry, it's taking us a little longer than we planned, but it will be well worth the wait.
The nature of the beast, everything takes a little longer than we planned. Yep, thanks for hanging in there with us, everybody. Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll stop recording. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Watch the groups for our post, the events for next week. Again, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, guys. Take care now.
Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.